At a rally on Monday, Beto O'Rourke discussed the race for governor in Texas. O'Rourke expressed optimism in his race against incumbent Governor Greg Abbott. O'Rourke said that if he wins, people will no longer need to be afraid of critical race theory or, quote, turning in the parents of a transgender child. O'Rourke also said he would legalize marijuana in Texas, saying, quote, Republicans like to get high just as much as Democrats. O'Rourke also spoke about legalizing abortion, which is now banned in Texas.
And that means that we are all lucky to be here bright and early on a Monday morning, 36 days from when this contest is going to be decided, arguably the most important election in the United States of America today, maybe in Texas history, given the stakes that are on the line right now. And the big news that I want to share with you today, 36 days out, is we're going to win this thing on the night of November 8th. And here's how I know that we're going to win. Because we're fighting for every woman to make her own decisions about her own body. You know we're going to win because we're going to follow the example of those courageous families from the Valley. We're going to make sure that we prioritize the lives of our kids ahead of the interests of the NRA or any other special interest or politician, and certainly more than we prioritize the political career of Greg Abbott. We're going to focus on how many aspiring educators, classroom teachers, counselors, librarians, principals, and administrators do I have here? I'll tell you what. I also know that we're going to win because we've got your backs, and we're going to make sure that you are paid enough not to work a second or a third job. We're going to make sure that you can connect with those kids in that classroom in front of you, not have to worry about being scared of CRT or turning in the parents of a transgender child, or worrying about a high-stakes, high-pressure, standardized test, because we will cancel the STAR test in the state of Texas. We're going to do common sense things that Republicans and Democrats and independents alike can get behind, like legalizing marijuana in the state of Texas. And given the fact, you all know this, that all Texans, of all races, of all ethnicities, of all backgrounds, of all persuasions, use marijuana at roughly the same rate. But disproportionately is black Texans and brown Texans who are stopped, who are frisked, who when found in possession are arrested and incarcerated, who upon release end up having to check a box on every employment application form saying that they have this conviction, making it less likely that they get the job. Very hard to get a student loan at UNT. We have that on your record as well. So in addition to doing the right thing now, going forward for every Texan in the future, I want to make sure that we expunge the arrest records for anyone caught in possession of a substance in the legal and most of the rest of the country. And then there's this, and it's the issue on which I'm going to need your help on the most. That is making sure that we get this democracy back. Let me tell you, in the state of Texas today, it is harder to vote, to cast your ballot, to register, to get on the rolls than it is in any other state in the union. And this is not by accident, this is by design. Those in power literally fear those that they're supposed to serve and represent. And they are consciously and intentionally drawing people out of the ability to participate in this next election. Now check this out. 750 polling places have closed down in this state in just the last 10 years. We are the fastest growing state in the union, and we closed down twice the number of the next closest state. These polling place closures occur in the fastest growing black and brown neighborhoods in the state of Texas. You will see, mark my words, on the 8th of November, election day, you'll see images being from Houston, Texas, outside of Texas Southern University, one of our great HBCUs, 6 hours deep. Folks waiting 6 hours to be able to cast their vote in what is supposed to be the world's greatest democracy. Now, it's not just that they have the tenacity and the perseverance and the patience to make sure that they are counted, and they do, and we're grateful for that. It is because of these polling place closures in that neighborhood that we force this indignity upon any one of our fellow Americans. We also have the gerrymander in this state that allows members of Congress to choose their voters instead of the other way around. We make it so damn hard for you or anyone else, but especially young people, to get their names on the rolls and to make sure that they register. You cannot even register in this state online, and you can do anything else you want to in your life online at this moment. There's an answer to this thing. We win this election, and not only do we ensure that there's online voter registration and automatic voter registration so that when you turn 18, you're on the rolls, same-day voter registration, replacing gerrymandering with citizen-led redistricting commissions, but for those who need some time off of school to vote, or who are working a $7.25 an hour job. $7.25, by the way, is the same minimum wage as it was 13 years ago. So there's no way you're just working one of those $7.25 jobs. You're working 2 or 3, and you need some time off. So here's what I propose. I want to lay this on you and tell me how you feel about it. There is a state holiday right now called Confederate Heroes Day that this state celebrates every year. What if we replace Confederate Heroes Day with Election Day as a state holiday instead? Think about what we're talking about today. Republicans, Democrats, independents alike, I welcome you into this campaign. We are about everyone. We write nobody off, and we take no one for granted. We are talking about things like investing in public schools so we have a world-class system of public education. We're talking about making sure that we expand Medicaid so everyone can see a doctor, fill a prescription, go to a mental health care provider in a state whose largest provider of mental health care services today is the county jail system. We literally rank 51st behind every other state in the District of Columbia in the ability to see a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a therapist, or a social worker. There are people in meetings just like this one who will get up and they'll say, hey, Beto, my mom or my brother or a family member will get arrested on purpose to be taken to the one place they're guaranteed any care at all, no matter how immoral or insufficient that might be. That is what we are doing to one another right now. Expanding Medicaid, which simply means to bring $10 billion back of our federal income taxes to this state, to make sure that we stand up hospitals that have closed throughout rural Texas, that we connect more kids with insulin. More children die of diabetes in this state than any other in the union. That's fucking crazy. You know why? Because insulin was developed 102 years ago. It costs nothing to produce. And we are allowing children in this state, the 9th largest economy on the planet, to die of this right now for no other reason. And we lack the political will to do the right thing at the right time. We're talking about making sure that the best jobs in America are created right here in the state of Texas. And not just in the obvious places. Look, you don't begrudge Austin or Dallas or San Antonio or Houston, where most of these jobs and capital investment are going right now. We want them to continue to be successful. But there's 250 other counties across the state of Texas. So for those of you who live in Montague or Pampa or Dumas, or do I have any El Pasoans in the room right now? All right. All 5 of you know what I'm talking about, right? We want to make sure that investments from this state show up everywhere. That's in our roads, in our bridges, in our water systems, in the ability to get online. We were in Hempfield, Texas, a little bit earlier this year. 3% of the residents of that rural community can reliably get online. Try finishing your education in Hempfield, or finding a job, or starting a business, and finding those employees. Try, if you're lonely in Hempfield, finding a date if you cannot get online and use the internet right now, right? Making an investment in Hempfield, Texas, in that infrastructure, means there's more reasons for young people to stay there, or move back there, to plant their flag, to take their chances, and to raise a family, and make sure that the next generation is raised right there. Find me the Republican who's going to argue the other side of these issues. World-class schools, great jobs, the ability to see a doctor. And on this issue of marijuana, sometimes that's made out to be like this really progressive or super liberal issue. Dirty little secret, as I've traveled the state of Texas, Republicans like to get high just as much as Democrats like to get high in the state. One other group that I want to make sure that we talk about that all too often does not get included in the conversation. And you all are closer to this than I am. I just turned 50, right? I'm an old guy, kind of coasting into the sunset right now. The sun is rising on your life right now. Many of you are thinking about or have already signed up and enlisted to serve your country in uniform. And what strikes me about this is that fewer than 1% of our fellow Americans have raised their hand and agreed to put their lives on the line for all of us since 9/11. Fewer than 1% have decided to serve in wars half a world away that have been going on for my entire adult life. I was 18 years old, not too far from where you are today, the first time I remember this country going to war in the Persian Gulf in 1991. We have been there, más o menos, nearly every single year since. And it's not just Iraq. We're in Syria, Somalia, Yemen, still some presence in Afghanistan today. And we spare no expense to send you over there, your training, the equipment, everything that you need to be successful. And of course, we ask you to potentially lose your life or take the lives of others in the bargain. But here's the problem. When you get back to Texas, somehow these resources are a little bit harder to find. In this extraordinarily wealthy state tonight, while you are safe and sound in your dorm room, I'll be in a hotel, either here or in Waco or somewhere in between. There are hundreds of veterans who will be sleeping on the side of the road, or on a park bench, or underneath a bridge. And again, we don't lack for resources to be able to help them. I would argue that we should pay any price, bear any burden, to make sure that every single person who has served this country has that roof over their head, is connected to the care that can literally save their lives. Those who come back and say, hey, Beto, while in Iraq, there were these toxic burn pits, and we were burning body parts, and chemical waste, and Jesus Christ, God only knows what was set fire there. And breathing that stuff in over there makes it a lot harder for me to breathe when I'm back home. This toxic burn pit exposure will cost the lives of those veterans if we don't decide to stand up right now and ensure that we have the resources to connect them to the care that they need. So here's my commitment as your next governor. We're going to make sure that we stand up a toxic burn pit registry in the state of Texas. Every returning veteran gets connected to that and connected to the care so that we do not repeat the mistake that we made with the Vietnam-era veteran who came back and waited 40 years for their exposure to Agent Orange to be treated as a presumptive condition for cancers that claimed their lives. In other words, we are going to be there for anyone who has been there for us in the past. If you serve this country in uniform, if you serve in a classroom as an educator, if you just want to make sure that you are treated equally under the law, regardless of the differences between us, whether that is skin color or sexual orientation or anything else, this is a campaign for you. We are about everyone. And it is the perfect contrast to the guy who's been in there for nearly 8 years, who is so busy trying to scare you about your fellow human beings, to make you afraid of people who call this state their home, and even to hate on them because of the differences between us. Let me give it to you by the numbers in terms of his failures. It's been 1 month since the most extreme abortion ban in the United States of America went into law right here in Texas. Not only is it a total ban that begins at conception, there's no exception for rape, and there's no exception for incest. And it's happening at the epicenter of a maternal mortality crisis that is 3 times as deadly for black women. And let me explain. As we have foreclosed the options for women to get a safe, legal abortion in the state of Texas, we've also closed down opportunities to get a cervical cancer screening, to see a family planning provider, to be with a doctor of any kind in the least insured state in America. And women in this state are paying the price. But not only can we overcome this challenge, I want to remind you of our history. We've overcome it before against much greater odds. 50 years ago, abortion was just as illegal in the state of Texas as it is today. But no one rode to the rescue of Texas women. In fact, it was Texas women who took the lead and rode to the rescue of the rest of this country. Jane Roe, of Roe versus Wade, was a Texas woman. Her two attorneys, Linda Coffey, who still lives not too far from here in Dallas, Texas, and Sarah Weddington from Abilene. Those three women prevailed upon an all-male United States Supreme Court to win protection for the right to privacy, to make very personal, very individual decisions on their own without government interference. Reproductive health care freedom. Now, here's what I'm thinking. If Texas women won the way 50 years ago, then Texas women are going to win it back in 2022. Another number that comes to mind is that tomorrow will mark 19 weeks since 19 children and their two teachers were taken from us by a guy who at the age of 18 could legally purchase not one, but two AR-15s and hundreds of rounds of ammunition. I mentioned there's Vietnam-era veterans. They're the ones who were told me that that AR was originally designed, engineered, and sold to the United States military for members of the United States Army to be able to kill an enemy soldier at 500 yards, penetrate the steel helmet, and take that guy down dead. Those kids were not at 500 yards. They were at 5 feet. Nothing on their heads but a baseball cap. Anna, whose daughter Micah was killed that day along with 18 other children, could only identify her daughter by the shoes that she was wearing. Those kids were defenseless against that kind of firepower. They were also defenseless against a governor who, on his watch for the last 5 years, 5 of the deadliest mass shootings in U.S. history have taken place. In addition to Uvalde, Santa Fe High School, El Paso, Texas, 23 of my neighbors gunned down in a matter of minutes, Sutherland Springs, Midland, Odessa, and then there's this, and this point bears repeating. We all know the mass casualty events, as we should, and the names and the faces of the victims who've been taken from us, as we should. But we should also remember this. There are children, young people in this community, and throughout the state of Texas, who are gunned down every single day. And it has become so numbingly common in this state that their names no longer make the newspaper. We no longer see their faces on the nightly news. It's as though we've accepted this as the price of living in Texas. That more than 4,000 of us will die in Texas every year in this same way. We lead the nation in school shootings right now. Gun violence, the leading cause of death for children and teenagers in the state of Texas. Now, this doesn't have to be our future, our fortune, or our fate. We know, because we have this long, proud tradition of responsible gun ownership, that we can defend the Second Amendment and do a better job of protecting the lives of those in our communities. What if, for example, we raise the age of purchase for an AR-15 to at least 21? What if we have a flag law? So that if you have that gun and you're looking to use it against somebody else, we can intervene before it's too late, or a universal background check. It just simply says, look, if you want to buy a firearm in Texas, everyone is okay with that as long as we can vet you to make sure that if you are planning to use that against yourself or against someone else, we can prevent you from harming somebody in this state. Those three ideas, again, hard for me to find the Republican, the Democrat, the Independent, the Texan, the governor who's going to argue to the other side of this. We can argue on a lot, but on this much, there is common ground. And then there's this number, 19 months ago, in the energy capital of the world, the temperature dropped, the lights went out, the heat stopped flowing, the water stopped flowing because it was literally frozen in your pipes because you had no heat in your house. And when you did have heat, those pipes burst and they ruined your floorboards, and mold started racing up your walls and across the ceiling. This state endured $10 billion in property damage from not just Winter Storm Uri, but from Greg Abbott's failure to keep the grid working, power flowing to the people that he was supposed to serve. 700 of our fellow Texans lost their lives. Little kids who did not wake up in the morning, their moms unable to pile enough blankets atop their shivering bodies. Those Vietnam-era veterans I'm talking about, unable to charge their oxygen tanks in their homes. They take them out to their trucks. They are found dead the next day from hypothermia. Parents who literally set fire to the furniture in their home. It's the only way they can think of to keep their kids warm from freezing to death. And in too many instances, those fires ran out of control and burned everyone up in the household 700 times. And while that was happening, this government pegged the price of electricity at its highest allowable rate. His buddies literally made billions of dollars in profits over 5 days, $11 billion in profit. They stole that from us while we were shivering and suffering and dying in our homes. There's an answer to that as well. Not only must we win this election, but we must fully weatherize and winterize the grid. We must connect our grid, called ERCOT, with the national grid so we can draw down power in the year. It makes all the sense in the world. I don't want to and look, without justice and accountability, the same thing's certainly going to happen again. So, when we win, and as governor, we'll take those who stole the $11 billion from us to court. We'll get every single penny of that back and return it to the taxpayers in the state of Texas. We need for the last one. The number 8. 8 years, that's how long Greg Abbott has been in office. Well, that's right. I was going to ask you how you felt about him, but now I'm not going to do that. So 8 years. And look, if you have the kind of failures that he is responsible for, you might do the same thing that he's doing. Instead of running on his track record or proposing some kind of bold vision for the future of Texas, he's trying to scare us about me, or about Joe Biden, or about God only knows what. I mean, ask him about the grid, and he'll try to get you afraid of CRT. Ask him why teachers are leaving the profession by the thousands, if not tens of thousands. And he'll talk about transgender students and what bathroom they use and what sport they can play and whether their parents should be arrested for child abuse. No joke. And then there's this. One of his biggest boogeymen is going to be immigrants. You know, those who seek to come to this country, not only to do better for themselves, but to do better for all of us by extension. That's where he wants you to be most afraid at this moment. And let's begin by conceding. There are some real problems we have right now in our immigration system and at our border. And look, my wife Amy and I were raising our 3 kids at the epicenter of the U.S.-Mexico border in El Paso and Ciudad Juarez. So we understand this. But let me make this clear. John Lewis, with whom I have the distinct honor of serving in Congress for 6 years, the guy who really shook this country to its conscience when he crossed the Edmund Pettus Bridge in 1965, beaten within an inch of his life, marching for simply the right to vote and be treated as a full human being in his own country, compelled LBJ to sign the Voting Rights Act of 1965 to create the first true multiracial democracy in American history. John Lewis would say this. He'd say, look, we all came here at a different time and in a different ship, but today we're in the same boat. And he would remind us that some of our forefathers and foremothers literally came here across a land bridge in the Bering Strait 15,000 years ago. And a reminder that where I'm standing today is indigenous lands, right? There are people who have claimed this part of Texas for thousands of years, for millennia. There are others whose forefathers and foremothers were literally kidnapped on another continent, brought here against their will, and in bondage forced to build the wealth and the success and the strength of this state without ever being able to be free enough to partake in it. And even now today, their descendants still not treated fully equally under the law in Texas. There are others who knew that to stay in their home countries would mean certain death. So my forefathers and foremothers, the O'Rourkes in Ireland, left that island in the midst of a famine that claimed 1 million lives. To stay was to die. And so they came here, the one place that would take them in, right? And by and large, más o menos, we have done our best not just for ourselves, but we hope for those with whom we live. Think about those coming from Haiti today, or El Salvador, or Honduras, or Guatemala, or wherever on the planet, because it's everywhere on earth today, that people send those who cannot stay where they're from. Those who climbed in the back of that trailer in San Antonio where 53 people were found dead. Let's invoke our power of empathy and just think about what it took to climb into the back of that trailer. You don't do it for kicks. You don't do it to steal someone else's job or place in school or get the red carpet treatment when you arrive in the United States of America. You know full well that you might die by doing that, and 53 people did. Now imagine you come there with your 11-year-old daughter and you're already in the back of that trailer, and now you gotta bend down and grab her hand and pull her up. You only do that because to stay in El Salvador might very well mean that you lose her life. I've got an 11-year-old son at home, and I forced myself to think about what it would take for me to travel 2,000 miles with him on foot or atop a train known as the Beast or La Bestia. Because people do not ride inside that train the length of Mexico. They ride on the roof of that train the length of Mexico. And if they survive that journey, they are right here at our front door. Where today, there is no safe, legal, orderly path for them to come into this country. It'll take 6 years to adjudicate your asylum claim. 6 years. But you'll live in a refugee camp in Matamoros or in Ciudad Juarez with your young child, hoping that you will all survive that and that you can meet your court date here in the United States of America. I do not condone anyone breaking the law or jumping the line or crossing in between ports of entry. But I certainly understand why someone would want to do that. Those who come for work and cannot find an employer to sponsor them, but you know damn well that employer will hire them once they get here. Look, I don't condone breaking the law, but I understand why it happens. Someone who lives in Mexico, or the Philippines, or India, where the wait time to join a family member here, if you do it legally and get in the back of the line, is 20 years. I don't condone anyone jumping that line. I understand why you wouldn't want to wait 2 decades to see your family. What if, instead of these stunts of busing migrants to Chicago, or DC, or New York City, or building literally 1.5 miles of border wall. Like, I don't know what that's going to do for or against anybody. What if we had solutions? And we said, look, no one has a monopoly on the answer to this question, but we all acknowledge the last time our immigration laws were rewritten, Ronald Reagan was the President of the United States of America. These are our fellow human beings. These people are us, just in a different age and different generation of our own families. And how we treat them will define us in the eyes of history and in the conscience of our kids. We've got a chance to do the right things. What if there was a safe, legal, orderly path if you wanted to work, if you wanted to join family, if you wanted to seek asylum? We say, look, you want to come to America? You must follow our laws. Our laws will follow our values and our interests and our needs and our reality here on the ground. Can you all get behind that as an immigration solution instead of because here's the alternative. This talk of invasion, of infestation, of human beings described as animals, that's how you get them locked up in cages. That's how you take their babies from their mother's arms and separate them, in some cases, never to be reunited again. This government, on the eve of the El Paso shooting, said about this so-called invasion, Texans, we must defend ourselves. We must take matters into our own hands. Young man in Allen, Texas, not too far from here, orders an AK-47. His mom is so disturbed that he's doing this. She calls the Allen Police Department. What the hell does my son need with this? And she may have also signaled other signs of distress in this guy's life. The cops, because there is no red flag law in Texas, say, ma'am, you are on your own, good luck and goodbye. He drives that AK-47 650 miles to El Paso, Texas, one of, if not the safest cities in the United States of America, not despite, but because it's a city of immigrants. And he posts online, I have come to repel the invasion of Hispanics who are taking over my state and this country. And he walks into that Walmart and he kills 23 people in a community that doesn't lose 20 people in a given year to murder. It is that peaceful and it is that safe. That is the cost and consequence of those who are in power right now. Demagogues who will vilify and demonize immigrants, who traffic in stunts instead of offering solutions and leadership. But here's another bet that I'm making right now. We are better than all of that. And all of us are going to come together and show this country and the world what we are doing. Are you all ready to win this election? Are you ready to win it? This is the last thing I ask of you. We have a number of volunteers who are wearing these beautiful, bright yellow vests around the auditorium today. Every single one of them has a clipboard in their hands. And on that clipboard are open shifts to talk to your fellow students, to your neighbors in this community, and to bring them in to this election. So I want to be clear. Voting is important. If you're not yet on the rolls, getting registered before October 11th, absolutely critical. But we're not going to win without one. I need your help talking to those who could not get into the room today. Those who are just so busy in their own lives, they don't even know that this election is taking place, or the states that will be decided on November 8th. And I'll be clear with you, it's not going to be easy. You're going to have conversations with complete strangers about one of the two issues you're not supposed to discuss in polite company, the other one being religion. You're going to have to talk about what this election means to you, in your own words, from your own heart. But I tell you what, there is nothing more powerful or compelling out there. We can have the most brilliant television, the snarkiest tweet you've ever seen on Twitter, the most creative dance you've viewed on TikTok to this point, but none of that will be sufficient to get us over the line. It is human to human, face to face, eyeball to eyeball. That's what's going to win. And when we do this, if you'll sign up with me today, with the folks in the yellow jackets, I promise you that the very people who Greg Abbott targeted for voter suppression and voter intimidation will become the margin of victory when we win this on election night. You are ready? Well, we are with you. Thank you for coming out, UNT. Very grateful to you all. Les agradezco muchísimo. Gracias. Y nos vemos la próxima vez. Gracias.
Okay, we're going to do a group picture. Hold on the music real quick. We're going to do a group picture. Everybody come to this side of the room. Come over here to this side of the room really quick. We're going to make this fast. Beto, can you be up here? Whoever wants to sit up here with Beto. Let's get a group picture. Run, run, run. Fast, fast, fast.
Yeah, this one here.
One group picture and then we'll do selfies in a second. All right, here we go. If you're not over there, you're going to miss the picture. All right. Everybody look over here. This is fantastic. And then really quick before we take the picture, this center lane is going to be the line if you would like to do a very quick picture with Beto. We would love to do that. We can't leave questions. We won't be able to do selfies, but we'll do pictures. So once we're done, this is the line. Back over there, we are going to take pictures. All right, y'all ready? This is fantastic. I love this so much. All right. Look over here on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Fantastic. This is so great. Wonderful. All right. Let's get our line started. Get the music going.
We'll be right back.
Lord, don't pay the